All right, welcome. Thank you for joining the partnership breakout session. I'm Laura Kayawa, Executive Assistant for the Business and Finance Division and moderator for today's session. I'd like to share how things will go tonight. First, we'll hear from Director Keating, and then we'll open up the floor to our community members to ask questions of our panel. Before we begin, I'd like to highlight that we are recording this session. If you'd prefer not to be on camera during the recording, feel free to turn it off by clicking on, let me get to that slide, by clicking on this camera icon here, highlighted in red. I'd also like to ask that everyone remain on mute until it's your turn to speak or ask a question by clicking on the microphone button at the top of your screen, highlighted here in purple. I'll go over how to ask questions in a few moments. If you are joining us by phone, your features may look a little different. Now I'd like to welcome Director Lisa Keating, who will introduce you to our esteemed panelists and share information about the partnership strategic plan goal.
Good evening, everyone. I am Lisa Keating, Tacoma School Board member. I'd like to take a moment to introduce the panelists that will be joining us this evening. Dr. Josh Garcia, our superintendent, Amanda Scott Thomas, Director of Partnership, John Kettler, Principal of Sammy and Soda, and Sarah Sunshine Holloway, Teen Services Librarian at Tacoma Public Library. For this session, we will be focusing on strategic plan goal number 2, partnerships. This goal states that we will fully engage our parents, community, and staff in the education of our children. As we strive to accomplish this goal, we recognize as a system that schools cannot do it alone. Through collective leadership and responsibilities, partnerships support us in fully engaging youth, parents, community, and staff in the education of our students. We engage with school community partnerships that produce student-centered learning support systems that are innovative, effective, and culturally responsive. Additionally, staff continue to focus on data while using our benchmarks to ensure that we are on track with the work. To tie it back to the budget presentation tonight, our budget process, called Budgeting by Priorities, aligns our resources with the district's strategic plan goals. The budget department has prepared additional information for you to review on the district's website that provides further detail relating to the alignment of resources by strategic plan focus and program. And I think I give it back to the moderator, but I'm not sure.
That's right. Thanks, Lisa. Now I'd like to open the floor for questions for our panelists around the partnership strategic plan goals. Some of you have already sent in questions and comments. Thank you for getting us started. For those of you participating online now, I'd like to offer a few tips to help us get the most out of our time together. You can ask questions one of 2 ways. First, use the raise your hand feature in Teams to ask a question. Here's our slide that will help illustrate that. So you just click on the symbol highlighted here in yellow. When called on, unmute your microphone by clicking on the symbol highlighted in purple. And when you're finished, please mute yourself again. You can also submit your questions through the chat feature by clicking on the chat button highlighted here in blue. This will bring up a box where you can type a message and send to the group by clicking the send button highlighted here in red. I will present your question to the panel for you. If you aren't able to get your question answered, or if we don't have the answer for you tonight, we will write it down and provide a response through a Q&A to be published on the budget website next week. If you are joining us by phone, your features may look a little different. Or if you have any technology issues, please feel free to submit your questions by emailing cfo@tacoma.k12.wa.us. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. The first question I have here is for Amanda. What are some of the community partnership projects covered in this budget?
All right. There are lots of community projects and partnerships that are covered by this budget. A couple that I would like to highlight, and a few initiatives that I want to highlight, I'll talk about. First one up would be our partnership with KBTC, which is our local nonprofit public television station that does education for young children in the community. We offer, through a partnership with them, free paint nights at our schools. This is an open and free event at Tacoma Public School schools, any school that wants to participate. It's an opportunity for parents and students to learn together. The focus of these paint nights are all around STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, and math. It's a beautiful opportunity for parents to have a free intergenerational learning experience with their students. We know that science shows that if you can connect positive experiences to learning, kids do better and are better at learning, and it's a family affair. And so we worked that partnership for the last 3 or 4 years. It was recognized by the National Association for the Education of Young Children as a model for engagement, and it's been something that's been replicated in our community. So that started here in the partnership office through a partnership with KBTC, and we still provide those to schools upon request. Another would be a partnership that we have with the Tacoma Public Library for PK through 12th grade students to use their student ID numbers as library cards so they can access library materials, whether they be in person at the library or online materials, which worked out great with our virtual learning context. And so that's another great partnership that we have invested in market and support families in our community through that partnership. We also, every spring, bus high school and middle school students with their parents and guardians out to visit 8 of our stellar higher education partners in the community through college tours for families. This has been a really cool initiative in the district. We have families that participate every year, the entire family. Sometimes, elementary, they'll bring their little brother or sister to be exposed to a college campus. And we know that, a college education needs a plan and not just a dream. So taking young people to those campuses with their families, it helps us to cultivate a college going culture. The other thing that I would mention is that our budget also pilots new partners. So we have a lot of new partners and partnerships and programs. We have a lot of small community-based organizations that are interested in serving students, but don't always have the capital to bring their programs into schools. And so they may not have funding. They may be a mom and pop shop, but doing some really remarkable stuff. And we'll often seed those programs and support them in serving a school as a pilot. And usually with good success, funding comes and they're able to go ahead and support and provide those services, whether it be through a school budget later or grant funding that happens. So that's the other thing that we use our budget for, is to pilot partners to bring programs to students. This has been a game changer for smaller organizations, again, that don't have the capital to do that.
That's amazing, Amanda. Thank you so much for that. My next question is for Josh and Director Keating. How has the pandemic affected community partnerships, and how does this budget support expanding community partnerships? Josh, would you like to start, or Director Keating?
Director Keating, would you like to start with philosophy, or how would you like to go here?
Well, I just have a couple thoughts. I always have things to add once Amanda's talked, but I just want to say that I actually, on the wall next to me, we have one of the paintings from the paint night that Brian did, that my daughter did, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but it's at Brian, it's still on the wall. So I love paint night. And I just want to add to the piece around supporting smaller programs and providers, that I have been one of those smaller providers, and without the support of being able to partner with the district, I wouldn't have had the ability to bring my programs into schools. So it really makes a significant difference. And to that, around the philosophy, I think what we learned, at least what I learned in COVID, is that we heavily relied on our partnerships that were already established, and then had the ability through Amanda's work that has already been established, and other partnerships in the district, to be able to expand on those. And so, we couldn't have been able to provide what we did provide to the community without our partnerships, whether that was through being able to provide childcare services to first responders, feeding, the partners, the food, coordination and that went in, just like there was a huge lift, providing internet service and access. I mean, we really did dig, I feel, very deeply into established partnerships, and then also ones that, maybe we didn't need prior to the pandemic, but suddenly there was a need for it. I feel like we were able to leverage those partnerships in a way that did improve the lives of our students and families.
So I would just, I would invite John or Sarah, if you feel free to jump in this conversation as well, and Amanda. In addition to everything that Director Keating mentioned, I think when we think about what does this budget include is the opportunity to help students participate in partnerships where there's costs associated to the opportunity to use ESSER dollars to support student participation in not just TPS programming, but partner programming is a real unique opportunity over the next couple of years, which is exciting. As Director Keating mentioned, there was a number of partners that stepped up, and then the pandemic unfortunately limited a number of partners and their ability to participate. And so this budget and getting back to it, a pre-pandemic schedule for students allows our partners to redevelop their own ecosystems and get back up on their feet as well. And everything from, as Rosalind mentioned, with even construction projects and to early learning opportunities. And so we use our spaces to provide opportunities for our partners to operate as well, which helps us all go there. So I don't have too much more to add. John or Sarah, do you want to jump in on this one at all? Put you on the spot.
Well, I just for us with the partner schools, Soda, Sammy, and Idea, it has created opportunities for us to, with partners we're working with in the community, like the Youth Marine Foundation, that kind of thing, with Metro Parks Tacoma, with there's lots of other smaller organizations as well that we're able to kind of partner with and to work with, or to bring people in to participate with students. So by being able to have some of these dollars and to be able to work in partnership with people in our community, it's helped a lot.
I know at Tacoma Public Library, we were really pleased that over the period of the pandemic, we were able to continue our partnership with TPS, giving students access to materials, especially for little ones. It's so important that they keep reading for pleasure, because that's how you build literacy skills, is reading for pleasure. For the older students, they continue to have access to ebooks and physical books for projects and research purposes. And we added a couple of databases as well, and online resources that they hadn't had access to before that they were able to utilize over the period of the pandemic, such as like we added National Geographic, like all of the National Geographics and the kids version. And so then they got access to that. And we worked with TPS to make sure that they didn't lose access at the beginning of the school year, because that's normally when we remove all of the graduated students and add all of the new students in, so that kids continue to get seamless access. So we're looking forward to continuing and seeing where things go. Oops.
I would just like to add, I just want to add, give a plug for the Tacoma Public Library's Hoopla app. It's an awesome app, and we use it in our house all the time. So I just want to give a little plug to that.
I will say you can't access Hoopla with a student ID.
Well, for those that have a public library card, I highly recommend the Hoopla app.
It's worth getting a public library card for your family regardless, because it increases the number of materials you have access to. And Hoopla is awesome because it gives you access to a lot of nonfiction ebooks that you wouldn't get otherwise.
And then I want to just add a little bit of a shout out to our elected officials. When we think about non-traditional partners during the pandemic, a number of elected officials really stepped in to provide and remove some barriers, such as internet access. Pierce County Board of Directors, Council they stepped up and provided resources so that we could partner with Graduate Tacoma to remove internet access and provide case management to our families. That allowed us to redistribute resources to one-to-one devices. So those are then able to be used to access our students, the library services with our wonderful partners out there. Representative Lori Jenkins and our whole delegation locally in their efforts, our federal delegation of Representative Kilmer and his colleagues, Representative Congresswoman Strickland, all stepping up to really reach out to us to say, how do we provide additional state and federal funding? Not to just the school district to think about partnerships, but to City of Tacoma and other municipalities such as Metro Parks. And what's been really exciting is throughout this opportunity and how this budget is we're really, we have a long history of eliminating redundancy with significant partners like the libraries, right? We try not to duplicate our efforts. We try to work in a braided and aligned fashion. As we move forward with this budget, we're also trying to do that as well with our resources with other partners, Metro Parks, the City of Tacoma, to continue to provide opportunities and support both nonprofits as well as local business to support our kids and their families with their wraparound services. How'd we do, Laura? Amanda, you got to jump in because this is one where we all got to talk, right? Is there anything else? Or did we cover it? We can go on to another question, but we can have fun too.
Yeah. No, everything's great. I have another question actually for Sarah. Will TPS expand its partnership with the Tacoma Public Library?
So I believe that we would be open to that, but we would need to probably schedule a meeting and go into more detail about what that would look like. I think it's feasible, but it depends on what it is that we would do with that expansion. But yeah, we love our association with the school district because every single one of those students has the potential to be a library patron, and this makes it easier. It just takes all the friction away. So whatever we can do to continue to support them within reason, we want to do.
Okay, that's great. This question's for Amanda or any of the panelists here. We have, how much does the district invest in family liaisons? What do family liaisons do? And do you have them at all schools?
Okay. So before I answer that question, I wanted to say to Sarah, the library is an awesome partner and has been for years. And I have to give them a shout out for how they came and just helped to participate when the district put a call out for support when the pandemic happened and we needed to get school supplies to kids. So we utilized several community partners as distribution sites, and Tacoma Public Schools stepped up immediately, and we're doing it regionally. So we asked for the Kobachek and the Fern Hill location, and they did it. They've done it. They're doing it now. We're giving out summer activity supplies, and they were like, sure. So I just want to say thank you for being such a stellar partner and always willing to engage. So it's been an invaluable partnership. So thank you, Sarah, and the rest of the Tacoma Public Library. Just had to give you your props. All right, the question was about the family liaisons. Unfortunately, they are not in every school. Right now, we only have them in Bernie, Blix, Fawcett, Manitou, Mann, and Whitman. And they are, I wish we could have family liaisons in every building, not just elementary schools, because now they're, right now they're only in elementary schools, though we do have Michelle Haw, who does some of the community, she's a community liaison at Lincoln High School and does amazing work. But family liaisons really, they work to be the kind of point of contact for families with the schools. They serve as a liaison between family and community partners with the school. So they're that middleman. But if you ever talk to somebody that has a family liaison at the school, you will hear that they are like the go-to person. They are always bringing resources into schools, whether that be money, programs, partnerships that's their work. And so it's sort of like having a small community partnership office person in your building to help facilitate those relationships and really be a support for students and families. Sometimes when there's an issue that arises, families don't always know who to go to ask and get resolution. And contacting a principal or assistant principal, might take a little time, and they have to go through the chain of command. And just because our principals, are working and doing so many things, having that dedicated staff person that really does serve as that liaison is a powerful, beautiful, appreciated resource in the community, and I hear that everywhere I go. And so that's what they do. Each of the family liaisons are really there to meet the needs of that school. Every school is different. Some really focus on community partnerships and bringing those in. At some schools, those are already well established, so they do more, in-school activities or family nights and coordinating different events and activities at the school. So it really kind of depends on what the needs of that school are. I help manage the professional development for that team. So they are, this last year, we had an equity focus and worked with an expert that does family engagement. Actually wrote a book, Therese Moore, on the unreached and how to do family engagement in an equitable way. Because for some of our family liaisons, they didn't come. Their background is, certificated staff and their teachers, and though they've already, always had a love or a passion for it, gaining those skills has been very helpful for that group of ladies. The cool thing is that we do have community liaisons that are coming in. It's a new position in the district where it's not necessarily a family liaison, but it's a community liaison role. Lots of these folks are from community. They usually don't have a background as a certificated teacher. They may have worked in Title I before, or they may have worked at even a community-based program and have been brought on into the school as a community liaison. But it's that same type of role, really improving the relationship between parents and families and the school, and being that connector and really helping to serve, really. So it's a beautiful position. Like I said, I wish we had it at every school, so that could be the focus of that person's, because that is the focus of that person's work, is to really improve partnerships and turn the school into a partnership school where it's just what happens. It's natural, and that's a value of our district in each of our schools.
So I would just add that one of the things that makes Tacoma really special is that we recognize that we can't do all this alone. So although we only have so many family liaisons and community liaisons, there are other family liaisons with some of our partnerships.
Yes.
One of our amazing partnerships is the partnership with the Tacoma Housing Authority. They have family liaison supports. There are supports through United Way. And so we work through a variety of different opportunities and with other partners as well, because we're better together. And we recognize that. And so I would hate for folks to understand that, look, these schools, those are the only services that are offered. That's simply not true, because Amanda also takes those lessons and spreads and trains other staff that play different roles. So we also have social workers in some schools. There's also counselors in some, well, in all of our schools, but additional counselors. And so it is really a team approach that we take the family liaison role and spread it throughout to provide as much support as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Does anybody else have any comments before we move on? All right, I have another question here for Dr. Garcia or anyone on the panel.
Laura,
yeah?
I'm sorry, before you asked Dr. Garcia, I just wanted to answer that question fully, because I noticed that I didn't give the allotted salary and benefits, because it asked what was the investment for family liaisons, and it is, for the record, $800,834 for family liaisons in the district. Just wanted to have that on.
Thanks, Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so our next question is, what is the district's vision for partnerships?
So the Board of Directors started with back in 2012 with this pillar or strategic plan around partnerships. And it was one of 4 goals at the time, and as Rosalind mentioned, has now been one of 5 goals. And that has been recalibrated and reaffirmed both in 2000, originally designed in 2011, operationalized in 2012, reaffirmed in 2015, and then reaffirmed again in 2020. Director Keating, that was right, 2020 spring. And we go through a process which we call the accordion process. So we get community feedback and say, is partnership really still important to us, or do we need to adjust? And the board actually takes formal action on that and says, you know, based on what we've heard and what we see the priorities is, we want the superintendent and the school staff to continue to focus in on building partnerships and to operationalize that. And underneath that, there are benchmarks in there that talks about different ways that we envision as an organization through community feedback that we should be holding ourselves accountable for partnerships. And so when we think about what is it that as we come in 2021, right now we are in a between 2020 and 2025, a deep commitment to continued partnerships, expanding, maintaining, supporting. And in Tacoma, you know, we're all about continuous improvement. And so each partnership continues to adjust and change based on the needs of the community and the staff and the students. Families, I think that's one other one that I would really just encourage us to think about with partnerships. Amanda is leading a cross-departmental team around examining our family engagement practices with support from the National Education Association, Northwest Education Association, excuse me, and the Gates Foundation. And so we're constantly learning about how do we get better at partnerships, exploring. And then as Amanda mentioned, you know, we have staff right on site like herself that are really national experts, taking the care and map framework and applying it. And so our commitment is to stay steadfast in our understanding that schools cannot do it alone. Together we are better. And so that means that partnerships have to be worked on, cultivated, supported. And then I would just say that we recognize it's not easy. It's not always easy on a partner. It's not always easy on a constituent. It's not always easy on us. These are, you know, when you develop shared work plans and support and align resources, sometimes you got to stop doing some things in order for the partnership, and the partner can do more, or we can do more. And so we'll maintain that relentless focus on partnerships, at least until the board tells us in 2025, continue forward that path or to change directions.
And I would just add that, given, you know, my running joke is that I became an elected official just in time for a crisis. And I think that like we really, in a lot of the conversations ongoing, we don't have a full scope of what our students are going to need, like as we start back, you know, in the fall and then in the next couple of years. I think it's going to take quite some time for us to be able to, as a system, and, you know, in our district, but across, you know, Pierce County and our state and the nation, to figure out like what are the actual impacts and how do we measure those impacts of school closures, of the pandemic. And so in my mind, partnerships is they're going to be critical in order to help us provide the resources and the supports that are needed, that are maybe not necessarily in a school district's lane, and it's still a need that a student or a family has. So how do we do that together? And I feel that Tacoma has been building that map for some time and continues to work on improving that map, and also becoming more strategic with what does Pierce County need? You know, what does Tacoma need? What does Pierce County need? And how can we lean on one another and other agencies so that we're not duplicating, and so that we can be more impactful and intentional with what services and needs we're providing, and how other partners can come in alongside that work.
You know, I'm over here kicking myself because I'm thinking to myself, well, I haven't mentioned this partner, right? I haven't mentioned the Foundation for Tacoma Students. I haven't mentioned the Chamber of Commerce. I haven't mentioned Green Track. I haven't mentioned, you know, Prime, Daycare, Champions, you know, all these different partners. I'm looking at John and thinking, you know, John 20 years ago when the SOTA started was built off of the principle of partnership. And all the adjunct professors that we work with, the TCC, the higher education partners. And so I think as we go through, I don't think that we have a choice, even if we decided to publicly say we weren't going to partner. I just don't think that's Tacoma's way, to Director Keating's point. And it's such a part of our DNA and our fabric now that we have to, because we understand the value at our core roots. And so we'll keep going. And if I have excluded anyone, Peace Community Center, Gail and the team over MDC, anybody, please, I apologize in advance, but there's a whole army of you out there, and know that we're in great appreciation.
Yeah, and I think one other thing that where partnership is really exemplified within the school district is with our internship program with Next Move. And having that, where we have that in all of the high schools, I think it's been in all the high schools now for the last 7 years or more and been supported that way. We're working currently with anywhere between 250 and 300 businesses, everywhere from the hospitals and larger businesses to very small businesses, but working to meet the needs. And we have a very supportive community as well as a district to open these opportunities for students to be able to create relationships with people who are doing what it is they're dreaming of doing someday, so that they have these mentors that then can help them as they leave high school, leave the schools, and they become part of our community. They have an advantage by having these opportunities because we have a district that is built on partnerships and working with others.
Great example, John. I throw Summer Jobs 253 in that group as well, right? That's connected to that. And so and committed staff all the way. And I think it's really important from the board to the cabinet, to the frontline staff. I think of, all different kinds of folks that understand the value of that. And that's really what's unique about that.
Okay, well, that's the time for today, and we've got all of our questions answered. Is there any final thoughts before we close for the night?
I just want to say I am honored to be doing the work of partnership along with all of my colleagues. Like Josh said, many hands make light work, and because it's a value of our district and a priority of our district, it's not just put on one staff to do it. And then also just closing out to elevate the humility in which we do this work. This is one of the reasons I love working with Josh and Carla, is because they understand and they know and they say out aloud that we haven't arrived. We're all in this together, and it's about continuous improvement. And so we don't just look at folks outside of our system to improve, but us being a good partner as well and improving our own system. So I'm just grateful to be able to do partnership work with Team TPS and our partners.
I appreciate that, Amanda. And I think that's what's one last one for me is a big thank you to all of our cross-departmental teams. Our legal team that helps us do it in a safe way. Our CFO's office really helps us think about ways that we can use resources and grants to support partners in this opportunity. James Neal and Student Life. And so we could just go on and on, but really also our classroom staff as well. Right, because they welcome our partners in and really help make meaning and relevant opportunities. And so the Sarahs of the world are really impacting kids on a daily basis. So all under the umbrella of a whole child, right? And supporting the whole child and being there together. So thank you. Thank you, Laura, for amazing facilitation.
And I'll just want to say one last thing. I've been thinking a lot about where we were last year this time, and the unease and the anxiety and fear and just the constant changing of what's going to happen next. And, and this time last year, I mean, we were already in that by, for 4 or 5 months. And so I've been thinking a lot about where we are now to where we were last year. And I just, for anyone who's watching, who does watch this, I'm just really grateful for to the community, even at its hardest, even when we were in conflict and disagreement, because there were multiple needs that often were in conflict with one another. The results or the solutions were in conflict to the needs of somebody else and another family. And I just am really hoping that our staff all of our staff are able to take like an actual collective sigh and break and rest this summer and find some joy. So I just am very grateful to all of the staff throughout the district.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up. I've got a little thank you slide here. I just want to say thank you to Director Keating, Dr. Garcia, Amanda, and John, and for your participation in today's panel. To learn more about the proposed 2021-22 budget, please visit tacomaschools.org. And good night, everybody.